And over the centuries, some of our greatest champions were allowed to debate their persecutors, but they were never truly free to speak the truth. They were forced to defend our people with their tongues tied by the threat of torture, death, or both. The rebirth of Israel changed that. It gave our people a sovereign voice. It gave our people the right to speak. And never is it more important to exercise that right when the Jewish state faces a threat to its survival. Now, no Jew speaks for all Jews. That was as true in the time of Moses as it is today. As the saying goes, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. And no Israeli prime minister speaks for all Israelis, just as no American president speaks for all Americans. But the prime minister of Israel is not just the elected leader of Israel's more than 8 million citizens, Jews and non-Jews alike. He is also the leader of the one and only Jewish state, a state which gives every Jew around the world the right to citizenship, a state where the largest community, Jewish community in the world, resides, and a state which was established in the Jewish homeland and which is entrusted with securing the Jewish future. That is why when the Prime Minister of Israel speaks, he does speak on behalf of the Jewish people. And the Prime Minister's decision to come to America earlier this month to address Congress was a decision to speak on behalf of the Jewish state and on behalf of the Jewish people at a critical time. A time when the leading powers of the world are conducting negotiations over Iran's nuclear program. Iran is a country which openly calls and actively works for the annihilation of Israel. Iran's terror proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and others, encircle Israel with tens of thousands of rockets. Iran is trying to open up a new front against Israel on the Golan. And they pledge to arm Palestinians in Judea and Samaria and the West Bank. For decades, Iran has targeted Jews and Israelis all over the world, from Buenos Aires to Burgas to Bangkok. But Iran is not merely a threat to Israel. Iran has effectively taken over 4 Arab capitals: Baghdad, Damascus, Beirut, and Sana'a in Yemen. And Iran is the world's foremost sponsor of terrorism. And Iran's hatred of Israel, what it calls the little Satan, pales in comparison to Iran's hatred of what it calls the great Satan, America. That is why countries throughout the Middle East, and every country concerned about the peace of the world, all have a stake in preventing a nuclear-armed Iran. But Israel has a special stake because Iran's genocidal intentions, coupled with nuclear weapons, could pose a threat to our survival. And when faced with such a threat, Israel should never be afraid to speak up. Israel must speak up. We speak not out of disrespect to President Obama. Israel deeply appreciates everything President Obama has done for Israel, including much support that is not known and may never be known. We speak not out of a desire to wade into your political debate. Israel does not want to become a political football between Democrats and Republicans. And Israel appreciates the tremendous support that we have enjoyed on both sides of the aisle, support that we hope will be as bipartisan in the future as it has been in the past. Israel is speaking up about the threat of a nuclear-armed Iran because Israel has an obligation to speak. Because the leading powers of the world are right now, negotiating an agreement that could endanger Israel's future. Because Israel does not have a seat at that negotiating table. And if Israel doesn't have a vote on a matter that is vital for its future, Israel should at least have a voice. Now, at that same refugee conference in Evian in 1938, there was a female delegate there who was attending from mandatory Palestine. She was there as an observer. She was allowed to attend, but she was not allowed to speak. Her name was Golda Meir. As the fate of the Jews of Europe was being decided, the woman who would one day become Israel's prime minister was forced to remain silent. 4 weeks ago, Israel's current prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, chose not to remain silent. He chose not to remain silent because, as he said in the Congress, the days when the Jewish people will remain silent in the face of genocidal enemies, those days are over. I have spoken about the shield, the refuge, and a voice that Israel has provided the Jewish people. But if there is one place in America where people understand what Israel means to our people, it is probably right here in Skokie. Are there any survivors here tonight? Are there children of survivors here tonight? Could you please stand up a second? You know what it means to live in a world where the Jewish people have no state. You know what it means to live in a world where the Jewish people have no one to speak on their behalf. You know what it means to live in a world where the Jewish people have no power to defend themselves. But ladies and gentlemen, today is not 1938. The Jewish people are no longer stateless. We have restored our sovereignty in our ancestral homeland. The Jewish people are no longer voiceless. Israeli prime ministers can address the American Congress and the United Nations, and Israeli ambassadors can speak up in the world's capitals and on CNN. And most important, the Jewish people no longer beg others to defend us. We defend ourselves. Now, those who truly appreciate what both Israel and America has meant to the Jewish people also have a unique appreciation for the great alliance between our two countries. I came here tonight at a time of great concern for the U.S.-Israel relationship, but I am supremely confident that our relationship will weather the current disagreement between our governments, because America and Israel are brought together by shared interests, shared values, and a shared destiny. In fact, not only do I believe that the U.S. and Israel will weather the current storm, I believe our relationship will grow even stronger, and our friendship will grow even deeper in the years ahead, because Israelis know that they have no better friend than the United States of America. And because many, many Americans know and realize that they have no better friend than Israel, a solid, reliable, democratic ally in the heart of the Middle East. And the challenges facing our common future and our common security will grow. And our two countries will be pulled closer and closer together. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a tendency as Jews to see the glass as 1/15 empty. But this coming Friday, I ask you to look at things from a slightly different and more optimistic perspective. As we all sit around our Seder tables and recall our people's journey from slavery to freedom, let's remember how fortunate we truly are. Jews have been recalling the Passover story for over 3,000 years. And 100 generations of our people were forced to read the Haggadah as a stateless, powerless, and exiled people. Their calls of next year in Jerusalem were little more than faint dreams and distant hopes. But 3 generations of our people have had the privilege to read the Haggadah in a world in which those dreams and hopes have been realized. 3 generations of our people have been privileged to bear witness to the great transformation in our national life that came with the rebirth of Israel. 3 generations have had the privilege to be a partner in building a modern, thriving, democratic Jewish state. 3 generations have had the privilege to see an ancient promise come true and to witness children dancing in the streets of Jerusalem, our eternal capital. But with that privilege comes a sacred responsibility to preserve that dream for future generations. And that responsibility falls squarely on all our shoulders today, not just on the broad shoulders of Israel's prime minister or on the shoulders of Israeli ambassadors serving across the world. It is the responsibility of each and every one of you. And that is why I ask all of you to stand with Israel at this critical time. We are a people who have survived all the evil that history has thrown at us. And we will survive the challenges that we face today. But we will not do it by bowing our heads and by hoping that the storm will pass. We will do it by confronting that storm with faith and courage. And as Israel confronts that storm, I am confident that all of you will be standing right by our side. Standing tall, standing proud, standing with Israel. Thank you.